Okay, we're in the middle of one of the longest prakim of Mesilat Yesharim. I don't believe it's the longest, but one of the longest is Parakeh Tet. And with this is the midah, really the pratim now of Chasidus. And when it comes to this inyan, so he started off breaking things down that very broadly there's focusing on mitzvos ben adam lamakom, mitzvos ben adam l'chavero. And within mitzvahs ben adam l'chavero, so we left off discussing. We're going to be discussing now milas chesed, and a lot of what we're going to be, most of what we're going to be doing tonight is actually based on a Gemara. I believe the Gemara is in Megillah, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, Megillah. That's going to be basically one idea about different thoughts amongst Rabbanim, why they were zochet a long way. Let's begin. Klal kol zeh hu gemilas chasadim asher fligu hachamim zachron levracha b'shivcha b'chova asinu ba. That when it comes to forms of wanting of chesed, and we were discussing that you want to care for someone, you want to make sure to not hurt someone, you want to do whatever you can for someone. So that's gemilas chasadim is something that, of course, praiseworthy and something that's a chova upon us. And he says, "V'chlal zeh redifas hashalom shu ha'tava haklalim bein kol adam l'chavero." And the pursuit of peaceful relations, of making sure that there's shalom between people. So he says that itself is like all-encompassing goodwill between people. In terms of wanting to not just you to be good, but making sure that there's peace and harmony. Unfortunately, right, machlokas is a terrible thing, and people lose friendships, marriages, and make people very angry at them for arguing and fighting over things, and bringing peace between people, and seeking out ways of bringing peace, maybe for yourself, certainly, to make sure that you always have peaceful relations with people. And like Aaron HaKohen, going out and make sure there's peace amongst others. So that's the top tier. And so the Ramchal now is gonna, after we, I guess, discussed subdivisions in Chasidus between Ben Adam Chaver and Ben Adam Makom, now he's going to bring proofs. He says, "V'ata avi lecha ra'ayot." Now I'm going to bring you proofs. Al kol advarim ha'ele min ha'chacham zechron levracha. Af al pi she'advarim pshutim ve'ein tzrichim l'chizuk ra'ayah. So even though this is so obvious, I don't need to tell you any proofs. You just know it's MS. But nonetheless, I'm going to give you proofs. Now he's going to be quoting the Gemara in Megillah. It says, "B'terech b'nei ha'ir." Megillah and Daf Kav Zayin Beis Amru. They asked the following question: Shalu Talmidav es Rabbi Zakai, b'meh harach teyamim. So this whole Gemara is going to recount a different, I believe, Tanaim, and ask them, why were you zochet a long life? Now, most of the things we're going to hear now are going to be pretty shocking, because when you think of the Tanaim, we're not going to go around polling. I know most of you prefer not to speak, so I'll just I will say what I think you would assume, what is on your minds. My guess is what is on your minds. If someone comes to you and asks you, what do you think Rabbi Kiva would say? Why he was I don't even think he's part of this, but all the Tanam, why were they zochet a long life? They would say, because I spent all day davening. I spent all day learning, all day involved in chesed. I never was selfish, never cared about myself. I didn't eat until everyone had food. Like things that are like extremely above and beyond. And a lot of these things it's interesting that they seem like, not all, but a lot of them seem like pretty posh things. So we'll discuss why that is. So Amar Lahem, so the first one, Rabbi Zakai, said to them, so the first thing he gives, a number of them, each of them give different reasons, like meaning multiple reasons for this. So the first one he says is, I made sure not to go to the bathroom within 4 amos of where I davened, of where there was tefillah, where there was someone davened. Okay, so back in the day, they went to the bathroom everywhere. There wasn't a formal bathroom. But he made sure if he knew that there was a place where someone davened, he wouldn't go to the bathroom near there. Right? Next. So aside from some of these not seeming so amazing per se, some of them are also a little strange. Next, Lochi Nisi Shem Lachavirai. I never called a friend of mine or a person by their nickname. Footnote here brings up that there's a Gemara that says that it is a terrible thing to call someone by a nickname. Now that Gemara is referring to, it might even say it explicitly, but that Gemara is referring to a nickname that a person doesn't like. Make sure at times if I hear this in class, I hear many kids in general go by nicknames. I myself have a nickname. Many of my friends, right now it's kind of a small chavra, but I have friends that call me the bus. We'll elongate it, the Schluss bus. Either way, I happen to like the nickname. So if a person likes the nickname, person wants it, that's great, that's fine. But if a person doesn't like the nickname, that's really bad. So the praise here that's brought down that they say about him is that even if the person was okay with it, he didn't do it. Because it's more meshubach, more mechubad to call someone by their proper name. Okay, what else? Lo vitalti kiddush hayom. I never, here the main thing means I never neglected to say kiddush on Shabbos day. Look at us. I think we've never gone to the bathroom in shul, never missed kiddush during the day on Shabbos day. I can't say I fulfilled the nickname one. 2 out of 3 ain't bad. It's good batting average. Just within the last one, which seems like really, really pashut, it's brought down here that it really means that he made sure to always have wine. And the halacha certainly, and like we'll see actually in a second, like the extent of this. But the halacha is if you don't have wines, you can make kiddush on bread. Baruch Hashem, in our affluent society, we hopefully never have to rely on that. But back then, it wasn't simple. And I remember hearing, I'd say don't quote me on this one, but I'm literally being recorded. So it'll be recorded. So the one person that will listen to this ever will have this. But I remember, if I'm not mistaken, it's probably over a decade ago, probably, I heard my Rabbi Rabbi Simon say that the Chavetz Chaim used to think it was gaivadik for a person to make havdalah on wine. Right? Because people don't have wine. It's not a simple thing that people are able to afford. So if someone was able to afford, okay, you saved it for Kiddush Friday night, Kiddush Shabbos day. Like, okay, wine. I mean, havdalah, we have the concept of Chamar Medina if you need to. So the Chavetz Chaim, like it was so scarce to really have wine, or so expensive. People were just so poor that they couldn't really afford it. So here, his praise was that he ran after wine, so much so. Where the next line, Ima zakena haisali, pam achas machra kipa shabarosha ve'via kiddush hayom. That one time when he didn't have enough money for wine, his mother, who was an older woman, she sold the veil on her head that she used to wear in order to buy wine for him. She knew how much it meant to him to always have wine. So that's a certain praise. Continues. It seems, by the way, that the Ramchal, since he's going to be elaborating on the third, that he only brought this down for the third. Potentially, I mean, all three we could discuss. But he says that here specifically we see the idea of Hasidus, right? Hasidus is all about wanting to do each mitzvah, each detail with proper kavanah, proper intention. Over here, he was so careful about it, so much so where even though, according to the din, he was mamish potter from having wine, that kiddush. But kevan shlayah lo, since he didn't have it, Amna midas chasidus hay osaking. His mother knew it was so painful for him, basically, that he did this through for his midas chasidus, that she was willing to sell her clothing in order to get him wine. That's certainly an example of chasidus. I think one could also say that all these things are examples of chasidus in the sense that they were extremely careful about these things. It is interesting just thinking about focusing on shot of the Gemara, right? Because he was asked, someone came up to him, right? An interviewer with a microphone in front of him said, "Why? How come God merited you with a long life?" Deep question. And so the answers are a little strange, right? I didn't go to the bathroom by a shul or someone davened outside. They seem a little strange, but a person just being so careful, even about things that seem small, I think that in and of itself is chasidus, right? Because if we were to say, I was always careful to never have an affair. I was always careful to not be machal Shabbos. We'd be like, wow, shkayach. But I think maybe the chiddush is that their worthiness of long life is that something that seems so simple, they're mamish careful about. Which means kal v'chomer is something that's more serious than this, even more so. I could imagine how careful they were. Okay. Thank you, Hashem, for giving me that thought. So I think that's probably shot. It says, the second example, right, that you didn't call someone by the nickname, meaning the Tosfos there says, wait, but you can never do it. I believe that was so Tosfos there asked that question, that it's also to call someone by a nickname. So what's the midas chasidus here? It's that even a regular nickname that the person doesn't mind or that the person might even like, he was always careful to call someone by a proper name, right? For Rav Huna, so now we're on the next person, meaning Rav Huna Gamkin Kosher Gemi al Lebusho. He was also this when it comes to reciting Kiddush over wine. Rav Huna, he once tied a piece of grass, right, like a grass cord, like a reed, I guess, around to use, I think, as a belt. The Fisha Machar Hemyano, the Knos Yain the Kiddush Hayom. The Imam sold his actual belt in order to get Kiddush. Wow. Right, so the degrees that they went to, these great Chacham went through, is amazing. Continuing on. Od Sham Shaldi Talmida v'S Rabbi Elazar ben Shimon. Now we're up to Rabbi Elazar ben Shimon. How come you were Zochah the long life? Amar Lahem said to them, Yamad lo asisi kabendariel beis haknesses. Says, because my entire life, I never used the Beit Knesset as a shortcut. Lo pasati al roshi am kodesh. And this one we have to explain context. It says, I never stepped over the heads of the people, the heads of the holy Jews. So he'll explain over here what does that mean. This chasidus in the sense of kavod beit haknesses, in kavod abrius, in the sense of kavod abrius. They didn't step over them. I'll explain this. In order, even though he could have, right, to not show a level of disgrace to them. What's going on here? Back then, it used to be that the Talmidim used to some of them sat on the floor, and the Rebbe would stand and they would sit on the floor, or the Rebbe would sit and they would be on the floor. And in order for him, sometimes it was crowded, right? In order for him to get to where he had to go, he had to literally step over them. I don't know if it was over mamish or just over the legs, or mamish over their heads. Imagine if there's a 2-year-old. Some of you, if not literally all of you, have little kids. So imagine if your little kid is on the ground, right? So you could step over them, right? And nothing wrong with that. So for the average person to step over someone else is not proper. But for a big Rav, so the kavod for him. So for him to step over the Talmidim is okay. So here, his midas chasidus was he didn't even want to do that, because he didn't want to give them even any slight disgrace whatsoever. Okay. Od Sham is now another Another Tana. Pretty sure these are all. Actually, yes, Rav Preda. I think these are Tanam. If someone knows for sure, please let me know. Ocham, Shaldi Talmida v'es Rav Preda, as Rav Preda Maharach Yamin. Amar lahem yamai lo kadmani adam lebeis hamidrash. Right. So some of these things I said most of these things seem a little simple, but some of them seem pretty impressive. So this one's a pretty impressive one. That he was always the first one to the base medrash, which you can imagine the base medrash where he studied. A, probably had a lot of people, and B, had a lot of really, really from people. It wasn't like the first one showed up there at 9:45. Right? You could imagine people were there pretty early, and so every day he was the earliest. No one beat him, right? So it means he got there at 5 a.m. every day. Who knows? Whatever time it was, but certainly that's pretty impressive. Next, lo beirachti lifnei kohen. So this is referring to Birkas Hamazon. So the Kohen, as we know, right, he gets the bench. But really, when it comes to benching, uh, really the main thing, and also within Aliyah, it used to be right. It should, in theory, go to a big Talmid Chacham. If I'm not mistaken, I remember hearing also learning from my Rebbe Rav Simon that the Vilna Gaon once a year on Simchas Torah used to take the first Aliyah. That's like the real din. So on Simchas Torah, the Vilna Gaon deserves every day, but he took Rishon, the Kohen Aliyah. The Mishnah, I believe, in Gittins has a whole list of things in Pnei Darchei Shalom, and because of Darchei Shalom, to not have people fighting, that's when they established first Aliyah Kohen, second Aliyah Levi, third Aliyah Yisrael, and on Shabbos 3 through 7 Yisrael for Israel. But in theory, when it comes to laning and when it comes to Birkas Hamazon, it should really be for a Talmid Chacham. So if you have a big Talmid Chacham like Rav Preda, so he deserves to bench. So he said, no, I'll defer to the Kohen, even if the Kohen is not as intelligent as me. Happy to defer to the Kohen. That's one thing he did. And he never ate from the meat of an animal where the parts of the animal that have to be given to the Kohen weren't yet given. Halacha is that even if they weren't yet given to the Kohen, the person's still able to eat from it because the person will give in the future to the Kohen. So he made sure, I'm not going to eat from it until it's given. Next person will do a few more of these. The Amr Od Shalda Tamid of Rabbi Nechunya Maharachti Yamim. Amar Lahem Yamai Lo Niskabadti Beklon Chaveri. He said that I never derived any honor from the shame of my fellow. We learned that idea before in the Sefer, right? To not build yourself up by someone else being pulled down. Lo also al mitasi kilas chaveri, nor has my fellow's curse climbed with me onto bed. What does this mean? This is referring to how every single night before he went to bed, he forgave every person. Meaning, I don't think he went up to them, but he verbalized Hashem or had the thought about forgiving everyone who wronged him. I think because of this, we actually built into Kriyash Malamita, there's a paragraph there, I believe he wrote on, about forgiving people. And even if what one says or not, certainly just that idea, if someone does it genuinely, that's a tremendous thing. It's not so easy to forgive people. Mefarish Hasam, he had the Rav Huna Dare Mara Akaspe, that when it came to Rav Huna, there's a story involving him that he was carrying a spade on his shoulder, right, a tool. Ata Rav Chana Bar Chanilai Bekadare Mine. So Rav Chana Bar Chanilai, he sees the great Rav Huna carrying this, so he says, "No, let me carry it. Let me carry it." He attempted to take it off his shoulder. So Amar Le, Rav Huna said to him, if in your hometown you're accustomed to carrying these things, then okay. But if in your hometown it would be demeaning for a person to carry a spade, then I don't want you to take it from me. Okay. And says the Ramchal. Now this is the Ramchal's explanation, or not really the explanation of the story, but his commentary on the story. Hare she'af al pi shamashmos bekilon chavero hu mishtadel devazos chavero. In general, when it comes to meaning here, like not being built up by your friend going down, is when you are causing your friend to go down. Meaning you can't push someone down, meaning metaphorically, in order to build yourself up. Now you're going to get more kavod from him. Meaning here, the Midas Chasidus is Rav Huna says, I don't even want to get the honor of now, I don't have to carry this. If you're, even though he's volunteering this person to take it off his burden, take it off his shoulder. If that's going to be a disgrace for you, if I find out, in your hometown where we're going, if this is something that is considered a disgrace, I'm not letting you do it, right? Even though the person is volunteering. We'll do this next paragraph. I think we'll stop at this one. Okay, inyan Amar Rabbi Zera, mi'amai lo kpati b'toch beisiv lo tza'adti b'fnei misha gadol mimeni. And Rabbi Zera says that, meaning his answer to the questions, and this is the last one that it gives. In all my days, I never expressed any displeasure in my house. I never complained. It's okay. That's definitely Minas Chassidus. This is going to be, this one, by the way, is by far the most Minas Chassidus. Like in terms of like, wow, like I can't do those things. Lo tza'aditi b'fnei misha gadol mimeni. I didn't walk in front of someone who's greater than myself. Not that we can't do that. You'll see some of the other ones. I never thought something that I wasn't allowed to in a bathroom. I never thought Torah in a bathroom. Below, now here's the one that's extremely difficult. I never walked 4 amos without wearing tefillin or learning and thinking Torah. Right, so everywhere he went, he was thinking Torah. I also could say this one is certainly extremely hard for anyone who's been in yeshiva. I never ever fell asleep in the base medrash. Never a short nap or a long nap. And below sasti b'takalat chaviri, below karati l'chavirai b'chani chasav. It says I never rejoiced in the stumbling of my fellow, right? That we saw one before, and I never called my fellow, a friend of mine, a person by their nickname. And he says, he concludes, this one part. He says, we have examples of acts of piety that we saw above. And here are just examples. And certainly, like I said, some of these things might dafka not seem so amazing, but I think that's the point, to show that Midas Chasidus is being so careful of things that are even more simple. And certainly the things that are amazing, and say, yeah, and the question of why do you deserve long life? Well, yeah, because I was always the first in Shul. Because I never got angry at my house. No one ever saw me upset. So that's certainly pretty impressive. And Bez Hashem will continue with Mesilat Yesharim next.